The Soul Repository Pavilion. It has a 10th layer. After a long pause, the Azure Ox Patriarch suddenly spoke. Wang Lin's expression remained calm, but his pupils contracted slightly. The 10th layer. Even I cannot enter. In all of Great Soul Sect's history, only the first-generation ancestor was able to set foot there. That place, it is where he entered ascetic passing. The Azure Ox True One's voice slowed as he spoke. After finishing, he fell silent again. Wang Lin also stayed silent. He could not discern the intent behind the Azure Ox True One's words. Time passed, about the span of a single incense stick. Then, staring into the distant sky, the Azure Ox True One spoke once more. Your contributions are not enough to obtain the complete multiple illusion art of the 9th layer. Wang Lin lifted his right hand and flipped it. A jade slip appeared, which he handed to the Azure Ox True One. With this added, is it enough? The Azure Ox True One frowned, glanced at Wang Lin, and received the jade slip. His divine sense surged into it. The moment he saw its contents, his expression shifted. He quickly raised his head to scan Wang Lin again, then focused his full attention back on the slip. Only after viewing everything within, every detail regarding Wang Lin's immortal slaying pills, did the Azure Ox True One take a deep breath. His gaze toward Wang Lin immediately grew strange. With his cultivation, he could instantly tell that everything recorded inside was genuine. Cross-referencing it with his own deductions about recent changes in heaven and earth, along with secret reports from his hidden agents, he pieced together the events of the Danhai tragedy seamlessly in his mind. What convinced him even further was that, although Wang Lin's injuries had recovered nearly 90%, faint remnants remained that could not heal in the short term. This only reinforced the authenticity of the jade slip. Good, good, good. The Azure Ox True One clutched the slip and laughed heartily. With a wave of his left hand, a torrent of world energy poured into Wang Lin's body. Explosive booms resounded as Wang Lin's injuries completely healed in an instant. This time, you have rendered great merit. In Great Soul Sect, merit must be rewarded. I can grant you the complete multiple illusion art up to the 9th layer. But you must promise me one condition. The Azure Ox True One's eyes gleamed. The longer he looked at Wang Lin, the greater his admiration grew. Inwardly, he thought, the first-generation ancestor truly lived up to his title as our sect's founder. The one he chose, indeed possesses such courage and resolve. What condition? Wang Lin's tone was steady, without the slightest pride. He looked directly at his counterpart and asked calmly, kill 10 early void tribulation cultivators of the Green Devil continent. Kill 3 mid-void tribulation cultivators of the Green Devil continent. Only then may you enter the 9th and 10th layers of the Soul Repository Pavilion. Complete these 3 tasks, and you may leave Great Soul Sect. The words struck Wang Lin like a tremor in his heart. He fell silent. On his journey back, he had indeed already decided to leave. His plan was to fulfill a few obligations to Great Soul Sect and then, amidst the chaos of war, quietly depart. After all, his true targets lay elsewhere, the Donglin sect and the distant Dao ancient lineage. He could not remain long on the Heavenly Bull continent. Moreover, the current war had stirred suspicions in his heart, making him all the more unwilling to be entangled further. Clearly, the Azure Ox True One had seen through this. Yet rather than forcing him to stay, he instead set forth 3 conditions. They reminded Wang Lin of the 3 gifts. After a long silence, Wang Lin raised his head toward the Azure Ox True One and gave a solemn nod. Whatever Great Soul Sect's motives, it had indeed aided him first. By Wang Lin's nature, he would repay this. Though the conditions were difficult, he believed he still had the chance to accomplish them. Seeing Wang Lin nod, the Azure Ox True One smiled faintly and said nothing more. With a sweep of his wide sleeve, an ancient jade slip flew out, landing in Wang Lin's hand. Inside were the complete incantations of the formidable multiple illusion art, 1st through 9th layer. To cultivate this art, you must refine a ghost sail. Since war is about to erupt, I will give you all the necessary materials. However, the souls needed to power it. You must choose those yourself. If you cannot find suitable ones, you may search at Ghost Peak. As he spoke, he reached into the void, drawing forth a sphere of light filled with refining materials, which he handed to Wang Lin. With a sweep of his sleeve, Wang Lin received the light sphere into his storage, then rose, clasped his fist respectfully toward the Azure Ox True One, and turned to leave. You do not have much time. 7 days from now, I will send you with several elders to guard one of the 7 caves of the Heavenly Bull. The Azure Ox True One's words echoed in Wang Lin's ears. Without looking back, Wang Lin transformed into a rainbow streak and left Azure Sky Peak. Soaring through the skies, he returned to his own mountain. When he had left, its flames had dimmed, leaving only a crimson hue. Yet the moment his feet touched its peak, fire once more roared to life, engulfing the mountain in blazing seas, accompanied by faint rumbling echoes. Within, Fan Shanming opened her eyes abruptly. A flicker of panic flashed in them. Biting her lip, she waited, but when Wang Lin did not summon her after some time, unease at this moment Wang Lin had no time to spare for Fan Shanming. He went to his own cave mansion, sat cross-legged, and a light orb flew out from inside his sleeve. With a single fingertip, it shattered, and immediately various materials for forging the ghost face sail floated in the cavern. These materials varied in appearance, but each one was exceptionally precious. After all, they were gifts from the Azure Ox Patriarch, of superb quality. Watching these materials, a rustic jade slip of the multiple illusion art appeared in Wang Lin's right hand. His divine sense flowed into it, and the incantations of this art, its entire contents, were engraved in his mind, including the method to forge the ghost face sail. According to the jade slip's records, this ghost face sail is named Ghost Sail. Its quality is divided into 5 grades: initial, middle, upper, extreme, and ultimate, with each grade corresponding to 2 layers of illusion art. In the Great Soul Mountain Gate, most disciples possess only the initial ghost sail. Those who can reach the middle grade are only elders or core disciples who are highly regarded and can be granted by the master for self-defense. Among them, Fan Shaming's ghost sail from back then was middle grade, a gift from Yin Luan. Generally speaking, a middle grade ghost sail is already extremely powerful. If used well, it can disregard one's cultivation level. This is something that can be witnessed in Fan Shaming's hands. If one could possess an upper grade, or even ultimate ghost sail, paired with the multiple illusion arts, its power would be terrifying. As for ultimate grade, it is too hard to forge, and there is only one such ghost sail in the entire Great Soul Mountain Gate. That single ghost sail is the mountain protection array of the Great Soul Mountain Gate. The formations Wang Lin has seen were not pushed to their extreme. They had only unleashed part of their power. These matters are recorded in the Jade Slip, and there are also Wang Lin's own judgments, which now clearly surface in his mind. The ghost sail requires a soul to complete the refining, but this soul is not merely the cultivator's, nor is more cultivation always better. It must be a dead soul. Wang Lin frowned. This is the first time he has heard of the term dead soul. In the Jade Slip's description, a dead soul is a being formed at the moment of death of a person or beast due to various attachments and unwillingness, or resentment, an existence unseen by outsiders and even imperceptible. If it has one more strand, it becomes a useless wraith. If one strand less, it cannot cohere, thus hard to obtain. In the Great Soul Mountain Gate, across the ages, countless people studied this dead soul, gradually finding a method to forge it before a person or beast dies. But this method's dead souls, lacking the tempering of years, no matter the cultivation of the person or beast from which they come, can only be used to forge initial ghost sails, at most middle grade. Because these dead souls can bear at most 3 or 4 layers of illusion arts. If more, they cannot endure and will collapse. This dead soul can be regarded as a kind of will. Only when this will is strong and has endured the tempering of time does it become tougher, capable of bearing 4 or more successive illusion arts. And the principle of multiple illusion arts clearly requires this will, using it as nourishment to generate layer after layer of illusions, causing one to lose themselves inside. The stronger the will, the stronger the illusion. Wang Lin pondered, gradually understanding the structure of these multiple illusion arts. Admiration flashed in his eyes. The ingenuity and mysteries of this art are such that without seeing the complete technique, it is hard to fathom. The creator of this art must be a prodigiously gifted person. Wang Lin looked at the jade slip and let out a long sigh. In fact, this technique is easy to understand. I recall when I was a child, before I started cultivating, in the village there were occasional tales from the elders about hauntings in some households. Often at such times, that family would go to the county town and hire people to drive away the ghosts, for peace of mind and the like. Wang Lin's family, he remembers, had such incidents in his childhood. He had forgotten, but now, stirred by the principle of this multiple illusion art, it came back to him. The tales of hauntings are mostly illusions, making people see strange visions, plunging them into them, unable to extricate themselves, hence the notion of haunting. Haunting represents unrest, movement, and chaos, but it is also a manifestation of psychological unease and irritability. Wang Lin's eyes shone as he gazed at the jade slip. Even after he began cultivating, thinking back, that so-called haunting was merely a grievance that existed in heaven and earth, which at a certain moment swayed some people's hearts, making them uneasy and agitated, and thus ghosts appeared, followed by a sequence of visions. This is the deepest core of these multiple illusion arts. It is also the origin of illusion arts. The so-called multiple illusion arts, when made explicit, are actually so simple. This is not some mere illusion. This is the method of the ghost illusion person. To articulate it simply, the person who devised this means, turning this phenomenon into magical powers or even Tao techniques, deserves reverence. A glow of understanding appeared in Wang Lin's eyes. The immortal emperor hasn't been gone long. The green devil continent indeed cannot hold out. The first-generation ancestors' deductions are very correct. Only there are some subtle discrepancies, and using the old ancestors' approach is too gentle, not suitable for the current situation. The purpose of Green Devil Continent is the same as that of the Great Soul Sect, and likewise, the purpose of the Unity Sect as well. A faint smile appeared on the face of the Azure Ox True One as he suddenly spoke. Lu Wenran. The moment the words left his lips, ripples spread through the void behind him. From within emerged the figure of a middle-aged man in a green Taoist robe. His appearance was ordinary, but waves of cultivation at the mid-void tribulation stage pulsed faintly from his body. He stepped forward, standing respectfully behind the Azure Ox True One, clasping his fists with deep reverence. Disciple Lu Wenran greets Master. Did you ever see him in the Alchemy Sea? The Azure Ox True One asked slowly, without turning his head, his gaze still fixed on the distant sky. That day in the Alchemy Sea, Disciple fought alongside Ouyang Hui of the Unity Sect and Uncle Meng Zihai against the Green Demon Emissary of Green Devil Continent. Following Master's instructions left from years ago, Uncle Meng led the two of us to feign defeat and flee aboard the cloud vessel left behind by the first-generation ancestor. Because of that, we never encountered this man. 7 days from now, you will accompany him to the third celestial bull lair. The Azure Ox True One closed his eyes. As you command. Lu Wenran's expression remained calm, but a faint glimmer flashed in his eyes. He bowed, then retreated, his figure dissolving into ripples before vanishing into the void. 7 days passed swiftly, and 5 had already slipped away. During those 5 days, Wang Lin remained secluded within his mountain peak, not stepping outside once. Immersed in the multiple illusion art, he refined every piece of forging material he had. Now, before him, following the methods recorded in the jade slip of the multiple illusion art, he had crafted a massive black banner of canvas. The fabric was woven inch by inch from countless melted materials, appearing like cloth, yet only in form. But the banner was not yet complete. It had only its frame. Its body lacked integration with dead souls. Only by fusing them in could the banner be used to unleash the multiple illusion art. Within his cave mansion, Wang Lin's eyes flashed. Raising his right hand, he seized the banner and, with a shift of his body, left the cave for the first time in 5 days. He remembered what the Azure Ox Patriarch had said. He had only 7 days. 2 remained. Now he needed to go to Ghost Peak of the Great Soul Sect to find a ghost soul and fuse it into the banner. His figure disappeared, and when he reappeared, he stood outside the burning mountain. His gaze swept northward. According to the map of the Great Soul Sect in his possession, Ghost Peak lay there. Without hesitation, Wang Lin shot forward like a phantom streak, rushing straight toward Ghost Peak. To the far north of the Great Soul Sect, near the sect's boundary, lay a forbidden land shrouded in endless mists. Few disciples ever ventured there. Only when a dead soul was needed would one come under a master's guidance to search within. Sometimes, however, high-level core disciples would enter on their own. Ghost Peak housed countless dead souls collected by the Great Soul Sect through the ages. Though their quality was not high, they were easy to obtain. After all, the sect was famed for its illusion arts, and without Ghost Peak, many disciples would never complete their ghost sales. Through the endless years, despite replenishment from time to time, the number of dead souls within Ghost Peak was never great. The Great Soul Sect's demand for them was simply too immense. Many of these dead souls had been gathered long ago as sect tasks and delivered here. But those who could cultivate by themselves, tempered by time, were exceedingly rare. The vast majority were sealed away the moment they were sent, left waiting for future disciples to claim. On the 5th day, at dusk, when the skies were heavy and gray with a stifling weight, Wang Lin arrived outside Ghost Peak. He gazed at the mist-wreathed mountain, a place eerie and chilling, like the very netherworld itself. Yet Wang Lin felt no discomfort. His cultivation, along with his past immersion in the conceptual realm of the netherworld, made him feel as though he were walking level ground. Cycle of life and death, transformations of the netherworld, these were no strangers to him. His steps did not falter as he entered Ghost Peak. At the moment he approached, waves of restriction seal shimmered faintly from the mountain, spreading around him as though to test whether he had the right to enter. Soon, the seal receded, and Wang Lin stepped calmly into Ghost Peak. Ghost Peak was a barren mountain, towering high as if piercing the heavens. No grass or trees grew upon it, only countless grave mounds. Densely packed, numbering in the thousands, the mounds blanketed the mountain. A chilling aura pervaded the air. Standing there, with eyes closed, one could almost hear endless howls echoing. Though the peak was utterly silent, the sensation was overwhelming. Wang Lin walked past one grave mound after another. He could sense that within each mound lay dead souls, some weak, some strong. Most of them were bound by seal marks, though at times a few slipped loose, drifting faintly into the air. He remained silent as his divine sense spread outward, and he ascended toward the peak of the mountain. The higher he climbed, the fewer dead souls he encountered within the mounds. When he was nearly at the summit, his eyes fell upon a grave unlike the others. Upon this grave stood the only tombstone in sight. Its inscriptions were blurred with age, emanating a sense of ancient decay, as though it had endured countless years. At the base of the tombstone knelt a long-haired woman clad in white robes. She wept softly, her sobs faint yet piercing as they echoed into Wang Lin's heart. The stillness of the surroundings amplified the sound, broken only by a chill wind that lifted strands of her black hair, the movement making her lonely figure seem even more sorrowful. Wang Lin halted. His gaze settled upon the white-robed woman. He did not climb further, but simply stood there, his expression calm. Gradually, her crying ceased. She seemed to realize someone was behind her, yet she did not turn around. "This is my tombstone." After a long silence, a faint, ethereal voice drifted from her lips. It sounded as if it had traveled from a distant world, so thin that without careful attention, it would vanish. "I can see that," Wang Lin replied quietly after a pause. At his words, her body trembled as though she meant to turn, but she stopped herself, remaining still. "You can see me? You can hear my crying?" she whispered at length. "I can." His voice was steady. In truth, if he willed it, he could see every dead soul here, for this was intimately connected to his life and death origin. Life and death, like left hand and right, different, yet the same. "You are not the one I am waiting for, and I am not your soul." She ran her fingers gently across the weathered tombstone, speaking in a subdued tone. Wang Lin lifted his gaze beyond her, toward the summit. There, 7 or 8 more mounds exuded black miasma, dead souls coiling within. 2 or 3 of them were exceptionally dense, souls strong enough to be refined into mid-grade ghost sales. These were the most valuable souls that Ghost Peak had to offer. "I cannot find my body. All I found was this tombstone." The white-robed woman's sobs returned, slow and mournful. Wang Lin stood in silence, then took a step forward, preparing to pass her and head toward the summit where the higher-grade souls awaited. Yet as he moved past, her wails grew sharper, carrying a note of anguish. "Where is my body? Where is my home? Where are my kin?" Her voice pierced into his heart, halting his stride. "What is your name?" he asked. "I've forgotten," she whispered through her tears, shaking her head. "From now on, you shall be called Kungsu." Wang Lin suddenly turned. With a wave of his right hand, her figure vanished in an instant. Only the grave with its solitary tombstone remained. Not long after, Wang Lin departed. He did not choose the stronger souls at the summit, but instead took this white-robed woman. Though her soul could only forge a low-grade ghost sail, her words, asking where her home and family were, had stirred something within his heart. The process of fusing a dead soul into a ghost sail was not lengthy. A single day was enough. When her soul merged into the sail, Wang Lin's ghost sail turned pure white. From within it, faint sobs would occasionally echo, crying that, once heard, would summon the image of a white-robed woman weeping with her back turned. On the seventh evening, as dusk fell, a jade slip streaked across the sky like a rainbow, piercing through layers of restrictions before halting in front of Wang Lin, who sat cross-legged in his cave mansion. "Wang Lin, hear my command. Proceed to the third celestial bull lair and stand guard." The voice of the Azure Ox Patriarch resonated from within the jade slip, filling the cave mansion before the slip drifted down before Wang Lin, motionless. He opened his eyes, calm as ever. Lifting the slip, his divine sense swept through it, imprinting lines of information directly into his mind. For countless ages, the Great Soul Sect's ancestors had carved out 7 locations across the heavenly bull continent. These 7 places corresponded to the 7 essence acupoints of the colossal heavenly ox, whose body had transformed into this land. Within each celestial bull lair, one could draw upon the heavenly ox's power, forming formidable formations and restrictions, and at the same time granting cultivators of the continent profound opportunities. From the era of the first-generation ancestor, the Great Soul Sect had foreseen Wang Lin's arrival, foreseen this great invasion from the Green Devil continent. How could they possibly be unprepared if the Great Soul Sect willed it? Even the refinement of the alchemy would never have been as simple as it is now. No matter how powerful the Green Devil continent may be, when it comes to this kind of deduction and calculation, it could never compare to the first-generation ancestor of the Great Soul Sect from countless ages ago. That first-generation ancestor was none other than the successor of the orthodoxy from the lineage of today's imperial preceptor of the Immortal clan. The jade slip of the Azure Ox Patriarch had not been given solely to Wang Lin. The Great Soul Sect's 4 elders had all received one. Stowing away the jade slip, Wang Lin rose to his feet. With a light sweep of his sleeve, he walked calmly out of the mountain peak. The instant he stepped beyond it, the sea of fire within the mountain gathered together behind him, condensing into the fire primordial true body. It slowly merged with him until it vanished from sight. With a single stride, Wang Lin's figure became a streaking rainbow, heading toward the Great Soul Mountain Gate. Behind him, another rainbow light roared forth, following close behind. The two sped forward swiftly. Before long, the rainbow trailing Wang Lin overtook him, arriving first outside the sect's gate. It transformed into a middle-aged man in green robes. The man's appearance was unremarkable. He turned suddenly, his eyes landing on Wang Lin. "Elder Wang, I am Lu Wenran." The middle-aged man spoke slowly, giving Wang Lin a meaningful look. Wang Lin descended, his expression calm as he regarded the man. Elder Lu seems unfamiliar. During his time in the Great Soul Sect, Wang Lin had at least some impression of nearly every elder, save for those deeply secluded old monsters. Yet this man, he was seeing for the first time. I was sent away by the ancestor on a long mission years ago. I've only just returned, so of course Elder Wang would find me unfamiliar. Lu Wenran smiled faintly. As he spoke, 2 more streaks of rainbow light shot out from within the sect's gate, transforming before them into a man and a woman. The woman was Yin Luan, while the man was a young cultivator in Taoist robes. Yin Luan greets Elder Lu. "I did not expect you to join us on this mission." She smiled warmly, clearly familiar with him. with Elder Yin Luan and Elder Su Dongda alongside me. It is my honor as well, Lu Wenran replied with a hearty laugh. Greetings, Elder Lu. The Taoist-robed youth clasped his fists politely, his face expressionless. After that, he said no more, his manner quiet and reserved. Wang Lin studied the three of them. The weakest among them was still at the early void tribulation stage. Lu Wenran, however, was at the mid-void tribulation stage, the same level as the seven-colored immortal venerable of the past, though in presence and might, he fell short. With these three, the group's strength was already formidable. Compared to them, Wang Lin's peak ethereal stage cultivation was far behind. As Wang Lin observed them, aside from Yin Luan, the other two were also examining him. Within the Great Soul sect, Wang Lin had already gained some renown in recent days. Anyone capable of breaking into the 7th and 8th layers of the Soul Repository Pavilion is not to be underestimated, Su Dongda thought to himself, his eyes lingering on Wang Lin. For him to escape from within the alchemy sea alive, even triggering its premature detonation, that alone marks him as extraordinary. And to return so swiftly from there, his speed is astonishing. Lu Wenran's gaze also swept over Wang Lin. He, too, had just returned from the alchemy sea, but only by using a void skiff left behind by the first-generation ancestor in his Uncle Meng's possession. That skiff was a supreme treasure of the ancestor, mysterious beyond measure, its speed unimaginable. Enough. Now that we are gathered, our mission is to proceed to the third celestial bull lair. There, we will hold our ground against the invasion of the Green Devil continent. Life and death hang in the balance. Let us remain cautious. Lu Wenran clasped his fists toward the three. Wang Lin remained silent. Yin Luan and Su Dongda only nodded. In the next instant, the four transformed into rainbows of light, streaking into the distance, leaving the Great Soul sect behind. They were not the only such group. In recent days, many teams had flown out of the sect, all under the ancestors' command, dispersing to various locations to stand guard. Their speed was great, especially Lu Wenran. With his mid-void tribulation cultivation, his flight carried the sound of rolling thunder, booming as he cut through the skies. Yin Luan and Su Dongda, both strong cultivators in their own right, were not far behind. Only Wang Lin lagged in speed. He could not keep pace for long. His eyes flashed, and he summoned forth the mosquito beast. Sitting cross-legged on its back, he sped forward in a roar of wind. The moment the beast appeared, the other three all turned to look, their eyes narrowing as they recognized its extraordinariness. Elder Wang, this beast of yours is fast enough to rival a void tribulation cultivator. I wonder where you acquired it. Lu Wenran asked with a smile. At his words, Yin Luan and Su Dongda also turned their attention fully on Wang Lin. From my homeland. Wang Lin's tone was brief, calm. Oh, and where might Elder Wang's homeland be? Lu Wenran's eyes glinted with curiosity. Lu Wenran realized he had misspoken, giving a faint smile before deciding not to pursue the matter further. However, deep down, he couldn't help but let out a cold snort. The four of them traveled in silence, pushing forward with all their strength. After about 7 days of flying, Lu Wenran suddenly swung his sleeve, revealing a jade slip in his hand. He studied it closely for a few moments, then pointed downward. This is the place. Here, our Great Soul sect's first-generation ancestor once used his divine abilities to set up a teleportation array. It can directly send someone near the third heavenly bull lair. We don't usually use this, but this time, I've been granted permission by the ancestor to use it for our journey, Lu Wenran said, his body swaying as he descended towards the ground. Below them lay a range of mountains, covered by mist. Lu Wenran followed the instructions from the jade slip and stepped into a valley, with Wang Lin and the others following closely behind. Moments later, a powerful pressure emanated from the valley, accompanied by deafening roars. A blinding light suddenly surged, maintaining its intensity for about half an hour before slowly dissipating. In the valley, there was no one to be seen. On the edge of the extreme heaven grasslands, which would normally take months to fly across, the sky and earth seemed to twist and distort, with clouds swirling as a blinding light briefly appeared. In that light, the figures of the four, Wang Lin and his companions, materialized. As the light faded, Wang Lin turned and glanced towards the direction of the Great Soul Sect, his expression turning serious. Such a large-scale teleportation array, its principles are incredibly profound. Wang Lin was not surprised by the existence of teleportation arrays in the immortal firmament continent. After all, the continent was vast, and without such arrays, traveling long distances would take far too much time. What I don't know is whether there are teleportation arrays between continents. But logically, even if they exist, they would be almost impossible to activate. The jade slip in Lu Wenran's hand shattered into dust as soon as it was used. Although Wang Lin had no idea what kind of power lay within the jade slip that allowed such a long-distance teleportation, he suspected that such slips were extremely rare in the Great Soul Sect. This was likely the reason why teleportation arrays were only used in critical situations. The cost was simply too great. Even a sect with deep reserves like the Great Soul Sect couldn't afford to use such an array repeatedly, not more than 100 times every 10,000 years. When the four arrived, it was still dusk. The golden sunlight bathed the green grass of the extreme heaven grasslands, giving it an ethereal beauty. This is where the third heavenly bull lair is located. The Great Soul Sect has placed an underground palace here. Right now, there should be many cultivators from nearby sects and wandering cultivators who've come after receiving the Soul Unity Decree, Lu Wenran said slowly. He then disappeared into the earth with a flick of his body. Yin Luan and Su Dongda followed closely behind, vanishing as well. Wang Lin hesitated for a moment, then also blended into the earth and disappeared from sight. Deep underground, the four sped through the passageways. Soon, they arrived at a vast, hollowed-out cave residence, which, rather than being a cave, resembled a massive palace complex. The palace complex was protected by multiple layers of restrictions. Had the four not been elders of the Great Soul Sect with tokens granting access, it would have been nearly impossible to enter. Within this enormous complex, nearly 10,000 cultivators gathered, most of whom were from nearby sects or independent cultivators. Upon receiving the Soul Unity Decree, they had hurried to this location with their disciples. As soon as the four arrived, hearty laughter rang out from the palace complex. Several colorful streaks of light whizzed toward them, transforming into three elderly figures who greeted Lu Wenran with cupped fists. Lu brother, it's been 1,000 years, you've finally arrived. Brother Zhou, after receiving the ancestors' command, I hurried here at the fastest speed, afraid of delay. Luckily, no cultivators from the Green Demon continent have arrived yet, Lu Wenran replied with a smile, engaging in friendly conversation. The other two elders also greeted Yin Luan and Su Dongda with cupped fists, clearly familiar with them, their expressions polite. Only Wang Lin, perhaps due to his cultivation being unremarkable in the eyes of these elders, received only a slight nod and little more attention. Wang Lin maintained a calm demeanor. These three elders were decent in cultivation, with two of them appearing to be at the mid-profound void stage. The elder, named Zhou, who spoke with Lu Wenran, was slightly stronger, likely at the 6th or 7th profound tribulation level, similar to Du Qing. Yin Luan and Elder Su, you've met before. This is Elder Wang, who just joined our Great Soul Sect. He's traveling with us this time to the Demon Continent. Lu Wenran introduced Wang Lin, gesturing toward him. At this moment, many cultivators from the nearby sects gathered around, their eyes respectful as they looked toward Lu. When hearing Lu Wenran's introduction, the three old men were inwardly astonished. In unison, they turned to look at Wang Lin. They had originally assumed Wang Lin was just another disciple, never expecting him to also be counted among the elders. At this moment, they clasped their hands with polite smiles, appearing very courteous. Yet after the gesture, the three of them deliberately ignored Wang Lin and continued their conversation with Yin Luan and the others. Wang Lin didn't mind. His gaze swept across them. Then without a word he quietly left, choosing a deserted underground cave mansion where he sat cross-legged in meditation. Lu Wenran's lips curved into a cold smile as his eyes followed Wang Lin's departing figure. For the sake of the Great Soul Sect, I abandoned my sect identity, disguised myself as an independent cultivator in the Alchemy Sea, and drew the Green Devil Continent's attention for over 1,000 years. All of this was only to keep them unsuspecting, never straying from the ancestors' plan to invade the heavenly bull continent. I sacrificed so much, yet the ancestor never granted me the complete multiple illusion art. And this man, what has he done to deserve it? As that cold sneer lingered in Lu Wenran's heart, Wang Lin suddenly turned, his gaze locking sharply with his. Lu Wenran's expression didn't change. A warm smile spread across his face as he gave Wang Lin a courteous nod. Wang Lin looked at Lu Wenran with meaningful eyes, then turned and disappeared into another cave mansion. Among Lu Wenran's group, Yin Luan was the one who understood Wang Lin the most. She could never forget his terrifying strength. Along the way, she had already noticed the hidden tension between Elder Lu and Wang Lin. Yet she betrayed nothing, offering no warning, and pretended to remain unaware. After a round of conversation, the three old men invited Lu Wenran's group of three to join them in the Great Hall. Not once did they mention Wang Lin. Clearly, in their eyes, Wang Lin was unworthy, nowhere near comparable to Lu Wenran and his companions. The six of them, laughing and chatting, headed toward the distant Great Hall. Lu Wenran likewise seemed to have forgotten Wang Lin's existence. Only after the six departed did the surrounding cultivators from the various sects begin to disperse. The entire extreme heaven grasslands soon became shrouded within layers of restriction seals. With the arrival of the Great Soul sect, the grand seals of the grasslands had been fully activated. As the restrictions surged, the entire plain rumbled. A colossal wall of energy, spanning 10,000 miles, manifested across the extreme heaven grasslands, connecting heaven and earth, spreading outward without end. At the same time, across the heavenly bull continent, the other six Sky-Ox lairs were likewise being fully activated, guarded either by the Great Soul sect, the Unity sect, or other station cultivators. Thus, the instant all 7 caves of the heavenly bull were opened, each location erupted with the same colossal energy walls as the grasslands. 7 walls in total appeared. The moment they touched, they connected into one, forming an immense barrier between the heavenly bull continent and the alchemy sea. This barrier was sustained by over 100,000 cultivators. 10,000 miles thick, it was not something ordinary cultivators could ever cross. Even a figure as mighty as the Azure Ox Patriarch would find it near impossible to break through. In truth, it was almost inconceivable. For the walls were not only formed by the power of restrictions and formations, but also infused with the strength of the Tianyo soul. Since the day these 7 lairs were first opened, never before had they been fully activated, never before had they played such a decisive role. Beyond the 7 caves, 72 underground caves were also guarded by cultivators of the Great Soul sect, the Unity sect, and other minor factions. These 72 caverns continuously stirred the land itself, gathering vast immortal power and channeling it into the 7 caves of the Heavenly Bull, further fortifying this united gateway. And this was only the defense. The Great Soul sect had prepared for countless years. Defense alone would never suffice. Hidden within were also forces tasked with slaughter. Beneath the extreme heaven grasslands, within the sprawling palace complex, countless cave mansions had been prepared as dwellings for the many sect cultivators. As time passed, a stifling atmosphere spread. Everyone knew the great battle was about to begin. If the Green Devil Continent's forces wished to breach this barrier of the 7 caves, they would have to destroy all 7 simultaneously. That would mean sending waves of cultivators to besiege them one by one. The grasslands were still quiet now, but soon, they would be engulfed by the dark tide of Green Devil cultivators descending from the heavens. Yin Luan also chose to enter seclusion, maintaining her cultivation at its peak. Su Dongda and Lu Wenran did the same, though they secluded themselves within palaces rather than cave mansions. Their higher status marked them as the ultimate guardians of this lair. In truth, among the nearly 10,000 cultivators present, there were 4 others who had reached the early void tribulation stage. Though they hailed from minor sects or as independent cultivators, their standing was likewise exalted. They too were invited into the palaces, counted among the decisive powers that could determine victory, or as time passed, Wang Lin sat quietly inside his small cave mansion. Around him were many other cave mansions. In one of them sat an elderly man in meditation. This elder did not recognize the restored Wang Lin, but Wang Lin remembered him. He was the gray-haired elder Wang Lin had once spoken with briefly on the extreme heaven grasslands. His cultivation had not yet reached the void cataclysm, so he could not enter the palace complex and was forced to remain in the outer cave mansions. In truth, with Wang Lin's current status, he could have chosen a palace if he wished, but he had no interest in that. Rather than drawing attention by taking a palace, he preferred the peace of this quiet dwelling. Cross-legged, Wang Lin slowly practiced his breathing technique, his divine sense spreading outward to cover the surroundings. During this time, he further refined both the blue umbrella and the soul summoning return divine art. He also took out the seal compass, unraveling the restriction seal he had once cast across the extreme heaven grasslands. The item was extremely profound, so much so that even Lu Wenran, the strongest cultivator here, failed to sense anything when Wang Lin used it. Days blurred together. Within the palace complex and the surrounding cave mansions, silence reigned, broken only by the faint sound of breathing techniques. Suddenly, Wang Lin opened his eyes. The compass before him trembled violently. On the map of the extreme heaven grasslands etched upon it, a green line appeared at the edge, formed by countless densely packed green dots, multiplying rapidly. They've come. His eyes gleamed sharply as he stared at the compass. It was time to fulfill the 3 conditions he had promised the Great Soul Sect. After that, he would leave the Heavenly Bull continent, heading east toward the eastern expanse, toward Dao Ancient. At the very moment Wang Lin detected the cultivators of the Green Devil continent, Lu Wenran's eyes snapped open inside the palace complex, a cold light flashing within them. Fellow Taoists, the cultivators of the Green Devil continent have arrived. His voice echoed through the vast underground palace. The sound of breathing techniques ceased instantly. All the cultivators in their cave mansions opened their eyes. Within the palaces, even Yin Luan and Su Dongda, along with several void tribulation cultivators, immediately sensed the intrusion. Silence thickened, and killing intent spread like frost. On the extreme heaven grasslands, the roar of the wind shook heaven and earth. Over 10,000 cultivators from the Green Devil continent swept in, blotting out the sky. Daylight dimmed into a sinister gloom beneath their mass. Among them, 6 figures flew at the forefront, 4 men and 2 women. Their attire was ornate, their bearing extraordinary. They were the elites of the Green Devil continent. 2 of the elders among them emanated the cultivation of the mid-void tribulation stage, making them the most powerful among the 10,000. The remaining 4 were all in the early void tribulation stage. The 6 streaked forward like rainbows piercing the heavens, the army of 10,000 surging behind them. Their killing aura covered the skies like a storm of black clouds. Brother Zhang, let's join forces and test the might of this 7 caves of the Heavenly Bull formation, shall we? Said one of the mid-void tribulation elders with a faint smile, glancing at his companion. Brother Zhao well said. This formation is rumored to condense the Tianyo soul. Let's see for ourselves what sort of creature this heavenly bull is. Elder Zhang replied with a knowing smile. At their level, life and death were no longer easily threatened. To them, this invasion felt more like a game. In temperament, they far surpassed Lu Wenran. Yet compared to the 7-colored immortal venerable, they were still lacking. Though their cultivation was similar, they did not possess that same commanding presence or effortless composure. As they spoke, both elders lifted their right hands, forming seals and pointing toward the extreme heaven grasslands ahead. Heaven and earth rumbled. Clouds gathered from nothingness, shaping into a colossal giant tens of thousands of feet tall that strode forward with thunderous steps. In the sky above, spectral light tore open space, and 3 black swords burst forth. Their emergence unleashed overwhelming ferocity. The grasslands beneath instantly withered, as though all life essence had been devoured. The 3 swords howled forward, flying alongside the giant. But just as the giant and the swords approached, the entire extreme heaven grasslands erupted with endless mist. Pitch-black vapors surged upward, engulfing the sky, spreading across half the plains and rolling outward endlessly. A deep bellow of an ox thundered from within the mist. The dark fog swiftly coalesced into the form of a colossal heavenly ox, which let out an earth-shaking roar at the approaching giant and flying swords. With that roar, The Ox of Mist exploded, releasing a torrential wave of black fog that rolled outward like a storm surge, crashing down upon the cultivators of the Green Devil continent. Meanwhile, deep within the underground palace, Lu Wenran's expression grew grim as he let out a low growl. All void tribulation cultivators, follow me and fight our way out. Within this mist formation, our energy is limitless. We can draw freely upon the power of heaven and earth. With that roar, 7 streaks of rainbow light shot forth from the palace. At their head was Lu Wenran, leading the charge as they burst from the ground and vanished into the thick mist. On the surface, the rolling fog completely engulfed the cultivators of the Green Devil continent. Amidst the darkness, nearly 10,000 cultivators surged out from beneath the underground palace. Thus, a great battle erupted. Wang Lin was among them. His expression remained calm as his figure swept into the mist of the extreme heaven grasslands. For the Green Devil continent cultivators, the fog obstructed both divine sense and the world energy. But for those of the heavenly bull continent, it seeped gently into their bodies, like a precious tonic.